And hi, everyone. Welcome to Sounding Great. I am Rick Zanotti.
And I'm Harold Muliati.
And today we've got with us, I hear an echo. We've got with us Jason Bishop, coming to us from Bishop Voice. He's a very well-known voice talent, voice actor. He's got a beautiful voice. You'll hear it in a second. Anyway, here's our intro. Welcome to Sounding Great, a podcast dedicated to you. Your voice, your recordings, your audio, how you present yourself and how people perceive you. Sounding great because you can.
You have a great voice, and you just love performing or talking. You might like to get into voice acting, but you don't know where to start. I wrote an ebook series called Get Clever about voice acting and announcing to help you find your way through the maze. Get clever today.
That was Lily Wexu, and it's a great series she's got. Go buy it. It's good. And joining us in that center position of power, it is Jason Bishop. Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm fabulous. Outstanding to see you and talk to you again, Rick. Been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. We haven't talked in, several years at least. And I missed you.
Your clients just quit calling me.
Our clients are fussy, and they have their one favor. You were the favorite for a very long time, and then they're fickle, and it's like, and we never know who they're going to choose, and they surprise us half the time. But
it used to bug me, but now that I'm an old fat fart in Florida, I get it. It's like art. It's very subjective. Yep. I could be 1-2 octaves too deep, or I'm sometimes too animated, even though I'm thinking I'm virtually dead in my read. And then other people want that dead read. So it's timing and whatever. So any other voice talent listening and watching, don't take it personal.
No, you can't. You can't, because you may think your voice isn't good enough, or you're not good enough, or what happened? Why doesn't everybody love me anymore? It has nothing to do with that. It's really at that moment what they're looking for, listening for, or whatever else. So that's the way it is. But no, you've done. Actually, you're on some of the pieces. We have a thing called e-learning tips. It's we made an app out of it on the iPhones, and that's your voice.
I need to download it.
E-learning tips from Relate, and that's you. That's you on a couple of things.
Yeah, I remember the stuff we did for one of the EMS or some kind of emergency response.
Oh, that was the pandemic. We did that for the County of Los Angeles, and you were the voice on the pandemic training we did. This is probably about 9 years ago. It's been a while. That was a long time ago, believe it or not.
A little future telling there.
Yeah, that was a good piece too, and that was a long one. It was I don't know how many hours.
Well, and as you know, sometimes certain topics lend themselves to certain voices. And while I generally have a kind of a nice, friendly, I think, voice, sometimes its resonance or its bass lend itself to more serious topics.
Right, and everybody now wants, "Hiya, I'm John." It's like, oh, please stop. Well, have you noticed a tendency? People don't like trained voices anymore. They want to hear these real doofuses off the street. No insult to doofuses who are watching the show. I'm sorry, but no, seriously, they want that everyday voice. And all the voice talents I know all say, I wish they would go back to real good voices, not just the, "Hey, I went to the store the other day and I got," it's like, oh gosh, and that sells? I don't get it. But
well, here's a secret, part of it from my old TV days. This is my real voice. Yeah. So when I do a read or audition or whatever, and they go, "We need you to be more real," and I'm like, "This is real. This is what my children, my wife, my neighbors, and my friends have to deal with." But referring back to the TV comment I made, a deeper voice can sometimes be intimidating, especially when you're having to be forceful and project and need people to listen. They think you're, my kids, at least when they were younger, I was Darth Vader. But I remember in morning meetings when I was in TV news, we'd have a morning meeting every day to talk the editorial content, what stories are available, what are we going to cover. And in those meetings, when I would artificially, my voice would be, I'd be talking more like this, slightly higher. I wouldn't get into the deeper registers to make it a more friendly, a more engaging, a more whatever voice.
Yeah.
And this is kind of my e-learning voice. in many regards. Because if I find myself dropping down to my more natural register and whatnot, it tends to be a little gravelier, a little deeper, and therefore sometimes there's an intelligibility and understand, some people maybe aren't hearing it as well as versus when you talk just a little bit higher, a little less threatening, a little less, you're modulating a bit.
Yeah, I like the deeper voices. It's even on women. I prefer the deeper voice over the higher, shrillier voice. But everybody has their own preferences and tastes and whatever else. But you and I met at an Adobe show. Well, not an Adobe show. It was Learning Solutions in Orlando, and you walked by the Adobe booth. I happened to be working the booth at that time for about 3 years. Leslie and I, Leslie's my wife, and we were working inside the Adobe booth as guests. And they would bring us in because we were experts in Adobe Captivate and some other products. So we were there, and you came by, and you said, "Hi, I'm a voiceover actor." And I went, "Let's talk."
Well, I hope I didn't say it like that, Rick.
Well, yeah, it was deep though. It's deeper than my voice, and I just went, "Oh, that's great." So we went off to the side, talked for a while. Friendship started, and I think you started working very quickly for us right after that, and had to have lunch and some meals with you a couple of times on other trips we've had. So, so if you're actually looking for work, what Jason was doing was brilliant because you go to a trade show, especially something like an e-learning show, and I don't know how many more you landed, but you got us for a while. I mean, for quite a while, and you still have us. It just, like I said, whatever people choose, and it was fun. It was a great way to meet someone without, having to go around searching forever and ever. There you were, you showed
right.
up.
Well, a couple of factors in that, a couple things behind that. It was in Orlando, so 90 minutes from where I live. I'm on the west coast of Florida. At that time, I was near St. Petersburg. Now I'm a little further south, closer to Sarasota.
Well, I thought you were in Tampa Bay for some odd reason. Or is that close?
Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, yeah, it's 45 minutes south. Okay. You know where the Sunshine Skyway Bridge is. You find that on a map. Manatee County is where the Sunshine Skyway Bridge ends on the south end. Live in the Bradenton area.
Okay.
So at that point, I had just left TV news after about 35 years. And so I was aggressive and young. I was about 20 years younger than I am now. And so it was like, I'll drive to Orlando for a couple days and just network, hand out cards. And it was one of the first, I believe it was DevLearn. I'm not sure.
It was actually Learning Solutions.
That's what it is.
That was the show, Learning Solution. I remember I met you a couple of times at the show.
Right, and they have the e-learning guild through the e-learning guild. That's what it was. I'm a member of the e-learning guild. Mm-hmm. I had found early on that I like and I prefer because it's, I don't want to say low pressure, but it fits my temperament to do e-learning. I'm from a family of educators. I'm an oldest child, so of course I'm been educating my siblings and a father. So anyway, that's where you and I met, and I thought it's an easy way to just go, shake the trees and meet some people and see what happens. I'd have also gone to, I believe it's DevLearn then in Las Vegas. Yes. And that's highly tech oriented. And that one wasn't fruitful at all. No,
not at all. Really?
But I wrote off the trip as a business expense. So, 4 days in Vegas.
Right. Had a good time. So I'm surprised because DevLearn has a lot of developers in it who might be looking for voice. So that one didn't pay off. Interesting. I would have thought just the opposite.
So yeah, the e-learning guild, I go through about every 6 months and I update my profile. And then when you update your profile, it raises you back up to it. So if someone's looking for a voice on the e-learning guild website or whatever, it bounces you closer to the top. And I've noticed a lot more voices on there, which is good. It's people marketing. And of course, with the pandemic, my goodness, the number of players in the voiceover field has exploded. Yep. Hopefully some people might be watching your Sounding Good Smartcasts and whatnot, or podcasts to learn, because like the acoustic stuff you see behind me, my microphone choice, some of my gear has been framed over, well now, what is it? 13 years, 15 years of experience. There was some wasted time in there, but regarding gear, my general thought on that is if you trust your equipment and you sound good, then you can focus on the performance. Yep. So that's why I be a bit of a gearhead in terms of just paying attention to my output, knowing how to use it, appropriately. There's some things I don't need to know how to do, but others I do. And so,
yeah. In fact, when we first met, we both were our gearheads, if you will, and we like playing with the gear. And as a result, it makes for better audio because you start arranging things and you tweak and you go, what if I do this? That sounds better. I like that. And it's fun. I think you and I were both giving each other advice in the beginning. Here's what I do and here's what I'm doing. And it worked. My audio got a lot better after some of the tweaks you were giving me. And I think I helped you with reducing some of the stuff you were doing. And it just worked out.
Early on. Well, and especially when it comes to e-learning, as you know, every client is different.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a couple of clients where I do a little minimal processing up front,
right.
2-to-1 compression, a little noise reduction, and then I run the mild declicker from RX7 and the mild denoise, very mild, because I don't want to change the harmonics and whatnot.
Yep.
And then I send it off and they do some additional stuff. They'll compress it again a little bit to make it fit whatever their RMS values are. And, don't get me started on the need for best practices for audio production and e-learning, because it's all over the map. I have other clients who want me to just slam it down to -6 dB, but it's really heavy handed. And it, to me, doesn't sound good. But by the time they put it through the various, I guess, what is it, LMS, a learning management system, their programs that.
Well, usually it goes through an authoring tool. And the authoring tools, unfortunately, they tend to overcompress, or they just ruin things. And as a result, the pristine audio doesn't sound as pristine in some cases. And so that's the only thing you have to be careful with. But fortunately, I think they're interfering a little less right now, so that the audio you give them usually is good, and they're not messing with it too much. Because again, we get really good audio from people like you, and we just do minor tweaking to it. Basically, with most people, what we do is I run an FFT filter. From if you look at filters in EQ and Audition, I run an FFT filter, pretty much gentle and narrow. It depends on the voice. With your voice, I'd probably either go gentle and wide just to give it a little softer touch, depending on what we're doing, or I'll go gentle and narrow if I want to really kind of tighten it up more. And it just, but that's it. And usually, like with you, we already get a little compression. I don't usually add any more to it. So we do the FFT filter, and we'll do a compounder, which, and it depends on the person. I think with you, I don't think we did much compounder, if at all, because you haven't. Well, you're kind of like me. You have a voice that's naturally sort of compressed, if you know what I mean. You have that sound array. People want to get that compressed sound, and you have it kind of naturally. So if we overcompress you, that could muddy you up. I don't want to do that. So we want to keep you clear and nice, and with the nice boom you just naturally have. I'm nowhere near as boomy as you. I wish I were. These are the voices we all want to have, and so that's you have that good announcer voice, the good, like you said, TV news voice, or even sports voice. Did you ever do sports?
No, I remember when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I was in TV, and I had approached our news director, and it was funny. And this is a quote that probably did more mental damage than I care to admit. I said, hey, why don't I just do it? I would field produce. And a field producer is someone who goes out and does the interviews, gets the video with the photographer, gathers the facts, writes the script, and then turns it over to like an anchor or a news. So doing the heavy lifting. And I'm like, why don't I just do this? Why don't you just make this? It's a feature package. I'll just be the reporter for it. And he goes, no, when I look at you, I see an asshole. Like just my look and my demeanor, and hopefully you allow cursing on the show. But I just went, wow, Steve. I mean, the man is now gone from us, but that was a bit harsh, I thought.
Wow.
So whatever. I went on to succeed in my career without having to be in front of the camera. But
which is funny. I've met you in person, and I know other people. You're a good-looking guy. You're not the guy who would say, "Well, what a jerk." No, you're actually very friendly, very nice, and you're funny. So I don't. Everybody's different.
I feel like that guy's he had to have known someone that looked like you that he did not like.
Perhaps. But also, yeah, I mean, I was, 100 pounds lighter back then, maybe even more handsome if Rick can believe it. But I was intense. I cared a lot about my career, and I was just coming out of college. Well, no, I'd been out of college, but another thing that a young lady said to me, one of my buddies in college said this. We were at a party, and I tend to be kind of one of the guys who stands off to the side and watches a bit before I then dive into conversations and engage. And he and I were chatting, and then he came up and it's like, you had to go talk to that girl there. And I go, no, whatever. She ended up coming up to me. She goes, quote, "You've got to knock off the Superman routine." Because I was standing there like I was watching over planet Earth, protecting it from all evildoers, and at 6'2" and, whatever. It's just, I was intimidated by the people that were there. They were all hipper and cooler than me. And I just, that time in my life, had very poor conversational skills. Unlike now, you can't shut me up. But, So, I remember when we first submitted audio, I was on a different microphone.
Yeah.
We're talking about sounding good. I was on a Rode NT1A. This.
Yep.
There's another Rode NT version that has a slightly darker.
The NT1. The NT1 now is pretty good. And there's also the NT2A, which is darker. But the NT1 is the clean one. It actually sounds pretty nice. The NT1A, I think we've all been through that once or twice. I kind of hate that mic, and I had it too. And I was going, why do I sound so crappy? Oh, wait.
So that was my starter mic. But my acoustics were nowhere near what they are now. What I have behind me and on the walls in front of me that you can't see are the array of ATS acoustics. Not to plug them, but a great product. So over the years, I'll buy 4 here, I'll buy 2 here, I'll get some corner bass, that kind of stuff. So my acoustic environment when you and I started working together and my microphone were totally different, as was my interface. So we did have to do a little bit more cleanup. But you and I chatted, and you allowed me to, I called it literally, it's probably still in my effects bank somewhere, the Zanatti Compander, because you took Adobe Audition's bass Compander and you made a few tweaks. And said, this is what I do for you. And I said, well, why don't I start doing that? And it worked. It rolled off some low end. It killed some high end, because sometimes that Rode was a little harsh on some of the upper frequencies.
Right.
But it had a built-in downward expander. And I'm a big fan of downward expanders versus gates. And even now on the, I'm using the Apollo Twin. I run it through the API Vision channel strip, but with everything disabled except its downward expander. It has one of the best among voice talents, the downward expanders. It's just very subtle and very gentle. And my noise floor is already, even with a window that does single glazing, is about minus 60 to 61.
That's great.
Which is solid, which is professional grade.
And with your 416, it gets rid of a lot of the side stuff anyway.
Right. I've been 416 for several years. Oh, Harold wanted to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah. Speaking of your sound environment, before the show, we were talking a little bit about different sounds that either sounds that you can hear that may or may not come in. And we were also talking a bit about some of the sounds that do come into your recording and your recordings and how you get rid of them.
Yeah, on that front, like I said, because of this window, the one sound that always seems to sneak in is my neighbor's pool pump, which is a motor. So it's going to, and I found out from George Whittam, who you may want to get on your show about sounding great. He is
well, they have a show too. They've got the podcast, the VOBS podcast, not BS. It's the voiceover. What was the BS for?
Body Shop.
Body Shop. How can I forget that? Yeah, George Whittam and the other guy. He's the voice guy. His name slipped my mind right now. They're really good. I like that show. It's a fun show.
And I've used them as a source of reference. So the frequency happens to be around, like most motors, 120 hertz, 120 hertz. Specifically because, who knows, the glass, my room, whatever, I did a frequency sweep and it was 119.9. So I created a very narrow notch filter. So anyone who's listening who might have might have such a frequency. And the way you can kind of check it out is if you're using Audition, record yourself, play back your audio, but open up the frequency analysis window, and on the right side you'll see the various frequencies that are represented not only in your voice but in the dead air.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would just record silence. I'd hit record, go out of my office for 30 seconds or so and come back. And I'm really good, below 60 on everything. And then right around that 120, there's just a bump that takes it to about 65 or 50, and then it starts to trail off. So I just created the notch filter to bump that down. And a lot of people do that. But also the downward expander helps with a lot of that. My voice, I tend to have that, as you said, Rick, a little more richer, resonant voice. And so sometimes that overrides things. I remember working with a voice talent when I was in TV, Charlie Van Dyke. He was our imaging promotional guy for our TV station. I've also worked with, what's his name out of Philly? Forgot it. Anyway, they would submit stuff, and the breaks between their recordings were horrendously loud, minus 50, minus 45.
Yep.
And that's because of the compression that they were doing, and
they were not on, or they had a big gate on.
Well, they didn't have any gate. I mean, it was
this
just
is back when. Okay, this is before the gates, the electronic gates. Okay.
Yeah, they were still using analog equipment.
Yep.
And so when you compress, but once they started talking, of course, their voice overrode all that noise.
Right.
So it's great for promo work and for station imaging, because a lot of times you're also married with sound effects and music. Tonight on Action News at 10 o'clock, bum, 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 bum. So the voice isn't, that background noise kind of gets drowned out. But in e-learning, you need an audiobooks, which I haven't done or don't do. You need it to be very clean. So I created the Zenati Compander, and then I would submit my audio to you, and that was way back. So you and I haven't worked together since I switched over to the 416.
No, you were on the 416 other times.
Okay.
Because I remember you on the 416, and I thought it sounded even better. 416 is a great mic. You turned me on to the 416. You said, this 416. I go, 416, really? Really? I never really thought at that time of a shotgun mic for voiceover. And I went, And I had a whole mess of them. I didn't have a 416, but I had a lot because we do a lot of video work. And I was thinking, So I went off to Sammy's camera and I go, hey, what do you recommend for really good audio? He goes, 416. I go, how much? He goes, they just went down to 950. I go, yeah, they were 1,500 a week before that. I went, I'll take one. And then later on, I got a second one. But I love that mic. It's really good. It's clean. And with your voice, it's very forgiving of almost any voice. But I can imagine on your voice, it sounds just great. And I have heard it on your voice. It does sound great.
Well, thank you. One of the reasons I got it is its consistency. I can take it if I travel, and I create the pillow for it if I need to. Although I haven't, I'm at the age now where, and especially focusing on e-learning, there's no need for me to go on vacation and have to carry a road rig because I don't have clients with emergency needs doing promos, and I'd love to do it. It sounds fun. I have a good voice for it, I think. I have all the television contacts in the world after 30 years. But they've been referred to when you do promos and station imaging as golden handcuffs. You always be near the mic. And but on the flip side, you can make a heck of an income. I mean, Chris Corley, who lives in Fort Myers, or he passed a few years back, had a home in Atlanta and a home here. And when it got too hot here, he'd go to Atlanta. And, you can make big money doing that if you're one of the top, 25, 30 people in the nation doing it. But anyway, for me, just the vocal consistency because of the side rejection of the F16. And it already, as you said, with a 416, it already has kind of a built-in, because of the way the capsule's designed, self-compression, just a touch of it. You don't have to do a lot. And but then it sounds the same. Like, when I do e-learning, I'll do 15 pages and then take a break. I'll come back 2 hours later, and you know how the environment can change. I mean, just simple air pressure changers going from sunny to whatever. You can tell with the or humidity. It just sounds consistent. So I like that. And
now, also, do you find, because this happens, I know when I do, and I don't do that much VO. I do a little bit here and there. More often than not, I'm just working with people in the industry. But what I find is our voices at different times of the day can get tired, or not as strong as the way you want it. Like, for example, in the morning you're good, maybe up to about 1 o'clock, and all of a sudden from 1 to 4. It sucks. That's when we used to do most of our shows. I was like, I sound like crap this time. My voice is tired. And then all of a sudden, about 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're like, I'm ready. Let's go. And it's it can drive you crazy sometimes.
Well, food and what I eat and drink does that. So I've, in an effort to lose some of this bulk, to be less Santa and more Grinch, I guess. I've taken to intermittent fasting. Sorry to go on a health tangent.
You know what? They said that works really well.
I'm doing 1 meal a day, or at least my eating windows from about 4 to 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little later. So I'm not getting, when I eat, I tend to get a little bit of, your body produces the mucus and the phlegm to help you swallow everything and get it moving. So during the day, I'm just drinking water, lemon water, tea, coffee. Yeah. What I found regarding the voice, so again, my voice, and it may work for others or not. Some people swear by eating green apples. Others swear by, the various throat sprays, throat coats, those kinds of things. Brushing my teeth. That most of like my vocal sounds, like when I get smacky or whatever, I'll just go brush my teeth and then rinse a little bit.
That makes sense.
Scrape my tongue, that's a little gross to look at sometimes, but the amount of stuff that your tongue will hold, and then it's creating all the various sounds. Regarding my voice itself, today my natural voice is different than the voice from last time you and I worked together versus the time we've really first started. I'm relaxed more. It used to be I'd get in front of the mic and I'd be so whatever. So your voice tends to kind of strain and you can feel your neck muscles.
Right.
Really, I sit on the edge of my seat. And you're kind of into the health world and whatnot. Several deep cleansing breaths. Make sure my shoulders are dropped, and every now and then I'll do via camera on, so I can. Sometimes you catch yourself, and my shoulders are up here, and I'm talking like this, and so the longer or the less strain I put on my body, and the less tension in my body,
then it just comes out naturally.
And then I also, Rick, follow the great philosophy of under promise and over deliver. I don't tell someone I can get them their 45 pages tomorrow. I tell them this isn't a rush order. You'll have it within 72 hours.
Yeah.
And then I do little segments. I'll sit down for 30. It takes me about 30 minutes to do 10 pages. If the copy is written real well, I can do it in 20 to 20. I mean, it can, very few mistakes. And that's another thing. Is that can slow you down and harsh your voice.
Well, by the way, before you go on, for anybody interested, Jason is an amazing reader. That's part of it too. Not everybody can read well, and they struggle. I've got bad eyes, so my reading isn't that good, only because my eyes don't focus fast enough. So I'd rather do short things than long things. But your voice and your reading are excellent. You've always been really good. We've given you some long scripts, and you've had no problem doing any of them very consistently from beginning to end. And again, you have no problem pronouncing things, because that's another one. A lot of VO towns will just give you the weirdest pronunciations. They don't even ask. It's like, no, that's not quite right. But you've been very good at reading. So that's one of those talents that not everyone has.
Well, thank you. That comes from being the son of a speech clinician and pathologist, and being aware of your voice and intonation. I was a very young reader, and then of course you read to your children. I would work with TV talent. On working on the prompter. Yeah. And I have an ability, and you may see it sometimes with people who do audiobooks, but it works well for narration or e-learning, is the ability to be reading these words, but your eyes and subconscious are actually a sentence ahead. You're in a sense pre-reading. So that you adjust your inflection and your pacing and which e-learning, so many e-learning scripts I get are following the same basic format. Like, hello and welcome to this type of training about X. Mm-hmm. The objectives of this course are the following. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom.
Mm-hmm. They're almost boring half the time. Boom. Yep.
So again, a well-written script, which you guys have always provided, helps tremendously and makes reading a lot easier.
Yeah, except when the customers get too involved, then what we give you is pretty crappy. But that's a whole other issue, because a lot of people just aren't writers anymore, and you could tell they're not used to writing, or they write in a very, how should I put it, verbose manner for no reason, and it creates not very good training or anything else. In that respect, some of the social media like Twitter can help, because in the old days, you had 140 characters. You had to get your whole idea out in 140 characters. That made you succinct. Succinct is a good thing. But no, they like to just blah, 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 blah. So that's one thing we deal with all the time. Just make it a little more succinct. And what I call verbal crutches. Don't say, the beginning of every sentence, basically. It's just awful writing. It's like, stop the verbal crutches. And a lot of people have them. And so as a result, we, quote unquote, as we're reading or doing, can recommend or say, maybe we can change this so it's not so repetitive. Oh, okay. Some people think about it, and others go, no, this is the way we want it. Okay, your choice. What can you do? And
that was one of my biggest jobs when I was in TV for many years, was copy editing and taking a reporter's script and saying, this is way too long, 1 thought per sentence, 3 thoughts per paragraph type of thing. The viewer has to get the point, and then you have to, get to it. And you and I have both seen scripts where it looks like they literally cut and pasted from the technical manual.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy run-ons that had 15 parentheses in them. I'm doing some stuff now about project lockouts, for safety lockouts. And it looks like I come across the writing of that they wrote is good, but then when they have to quote a subsection 2.2 of this particular regulation, it's the cut and paste. And then I have to go, oh my God. So it's like a deep breath, and you just measure and you just keep reading and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So, it can be challenging. Yep. Thank you for the comment.
No, you're very good at that. And, it's funny because when we first met, I think we're both 6'2", but you were slimmer and I was fat. I was like 280 pounds then. I've lost, actually, I got up to 300 almost. At 297, I said, this is ridiculous. I'm down to about 225 right now, trying to get back to 210. That was my weight when I was about 30. And so, I did it. I got 80 pounds gone already. And I didn't do anything other than I stopped eating at about 5:30. That's it. No, there was no more food until the morning. So that's my mini fast. And they said that's a technique that works. And then I try to eat until I'm full. When I'm full, I stop. Even now, if I really like something, I may eat it, but I don't go beyond that too often. I try to stop. I'm done. Okay, that was good. It works for the most part, and I try to work out more. That's the harder part sometimes. But but yeah, I think whether you're bigger or slimmer, taking care of this part is key, because it's so easy to get that part either congested or whatever else. And now you live in a humid climate. You're lucky that way. We live in a dry climate. Like the other day, we were down to 6%. It's like, you can't drink enough water almost. It's just nonstop. It is dry. Today, I think we're at 70%. So go figure. Yeah. This climate drives you crazy. So
and we are a quote cold front came through. So the high today is 85, not 90.
Okay.
The humidity goes about 50%, which is awesome. I preferred it about 40.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're about 70 today, but we've been yesterday was high 30s, 40s. That's good. Good humidity, not bad. And and I like it cooler. I grew up in New York, and it was hot and humid there. And now you're originally from the Midwest, right?
Kansas. Well, born in Arizona for 2 years, but raised in Kansas from 2 till 22 when I moved. So then with a young wife and twins to California, and then eventually back to Kansas, and then split from my first wife, and I went to Indianapolis, and then to Dallas, and then to Atlanta at CNN, and then ended up my TV down here as a manager instead of a producer, kind of a frontline doer. I became a behind-the-scenes manager at Bay News 9, which is, you don't have the equivalent of it. It's basically a local level CNN. But there's several. It's a news channel, 24 hours. They're live during certain parts of the day, and then they run a wheel like Headline News used to do. So, that was that. And then what broke the final straw on that was I had been married in 2003, and my wife was cool with sometimes having to work holidays and whatever. But one Christmas Day in 2006, I got called into work because of some tornadoes. So you're constantly on call in that position that I was in. And she just kind of gave me that look that said, okay, I got to make some changes. So I finished out my contract pretty much and just left. It was too stressful. I mean, my gosh, I just look back on the constant hourly deadlines and whatnot. And people managing. People can be a big problem.
That they can. What's the old saying? Management would be great if not for the people.
Exactly. And I mean, as a whole, people are great. And all of these people I worked with, many of them were awesome. You had a few people that were a pain, but they were great in non-work situations. So when you get a group of people that are high performers together, they all want the best thing. You're going to bump heads. And, it's just, and then I was there to kind of enforce policy and procedures that we had to adhere to. And it just, gets tiring. I was at work before 9 every morning, which would be
it's tough.
But I was there till 7 every night, and then on call on the weekends. And I was the guy that reporters called if they were going to be sick, and then I had to figure out who they were going to be replaced with, and so that's all. But it was a fun TV.
Yep. Well, that music you're hearing means we are out of time. So, Jason, we'd love to have you back on another day, and I've got an idea that's something you and I could do and have some fun with. Cool. I'll talk to you offline about that. And I'm so glad you joined us today. It's good to see you again. And Jason's information is below in the show notes, and his website is also listed there. Do check Jason out. He does a great job. He really does.
And hey, we'll also add the link to those e-learning tips that Jason that we had Jason do the intros to.
Yeah, we still have them. Those were done a long time ago, and they still look great. And I've even got a compliment or two a couple of times saying, "Is that you, Rick?" I go, "I wish it was." So,
if you want them updated, I'll do those free since they're just little intros. Because again, the setup has changed. The acoustic volume.
No, you sound great on those. No, they sound absolutely great.
Well, as long as you're happy. If the client's happy,
yeah, they sounded really good. I mean, we just put them out as free tips right now as a little thing, and they sound really good. E-learning tips from Relate, and your voice sounds really good on it. Anyway, we'll look forward to seeing you next time. And if you're watching the show, please subscribe, give us any feedback, and do come back. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you next time, everyone.
Bye.
And it's a wrap.